Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live stream. For anyone who's new here or who hasn't seen my live streams, I do a Webflow live stream every Monday through Thursday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central, where I go over anything and everything related to Webflow. Um, I cover how to build websites in Webflow, how to create interactions and animations in Webflow, as well as provide support. If you have a question about your personal project, feel free to leave a super chat, and I'll be happy to take a look at your project for you and provide any insight and advice. These live streams have been really great. So I have been doing my homework. I definitely want to keep these live streams, keep the content quality really high and provide a lot of value to the Webflow community. So one topic that we've been recently talking about is font sizes and rems and M units. Hello, Amkar. Welcome. Hey, what's up, Adrian? How's it going? Welcome. Nice. Hey, Karipos. How's it going? Yeah, it's always nice when there's viewers and there's interaction in the chat. It kind of helps me. Not that I get like nervous or anything, but like when you feel like you're just talking to a screen, it's like it's a little different than when you're actually interacting with people. Maybe it's just me, I don't know. But yeah, welcome. We have a very I'm gonna say a very cool live stream set up for today. I'm gonna go over the wizardry method for responsive typography. And this is something we've been talking about in the past few days. Talking about rems and M units. So if you haven't watched the video on this, I highly recommend it. It is such a cool method for typography, and it was created by Timothy Ricks. He has a YouTube channel, and I'm definitely going to be subscribing. Actually, just subscribed. Because I can see he's offering a lot of great content for Webflow. So one thing I'm going to get better at myself is just looking at what the community is doing in general. I tend to just be in my own lane as far as for me, I like creating animations and interactions using After Effects and Lottie and ClipPath and looking at animation scripts. But there's definitely a few areas of improvement for me, and that's I definitely feel like I could improve as far as like typography and even some layout concepts. I feel like I could improve. So my goal for these next few live streams is to improve on typography and layout. So those are probably the two biggest things when it comes to web design and development. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun with that today and probably the next few days. So Adrian wrote, nice. I'm very curious about your approach. Also, FinSuite's client-first approach is focused on REM. I'm still doing projects in pixels and feel like I'm outdated. LOL. No, am I a sinner? No, you're not a sinner, Adrian. Like, I love how you pose that question. No, no, we all, I think that's a pain point that we all share. Because it does take time and energy to wrap our heads around these new typography concepts, right? Because when we're so used to doing things one way, it's hard for us sometimes to change, or if another way seems too difficult, we get comfortable with how we normally do things. So no, you're all good, Adrian. A lot of us are in that same boat. So I'm fighting between Timothy's M's, FinSuite's Rems, and my pixels. Yeah, that's basically what I found myself looking at as well, because yesterday I went over FinSuite's REMS example, and I'll do some research on REMS, but I really like Timothy's M's method because it's straightforward and it does feel like it would be responsive and work well for different devices. And one thing I researched the other day, and it was like, are REMs necessary? And I actually found an article that said, they're helpful sometimes, but it's not like super necessary. So like, I don't want to underplay the value of it because I haven't done enough research yet. But I've, for the past few years, I've heard about REMs and M's and yeah. So in this live stream, we'll go over Timothy's method, the wizardry method, because I really like it. And then as I start doing more research on actual rems and ems and the value they provide, I'll definitely be covering that as well. But yeah, I like Timothy's ems. I myself am inclined to go in this direction, but there could be evidence to support the fact that rems are better. You know, if anyone here has like a I just had the word a convincing argument, I guess, for rems, just feel free to post it, and I can do a quick Google search in today's live stream as well. But the thing that FinSuite highlighted in their client first documentation was that rems were centered around accessibility. And I know accessibility is a very big topic, especially for Webflow and web design and development in general, that I'm curious to dig deeper into that and just see what advantages that offers. What advantage does rems offer over, let's say, Timothy's method, where he's using viewport width on the body, font size, and then using ems for the fonts in the body. So Adrian wrote, so I'm also tending more on ems, even for standard generic projects, like normal template-ish websites. Yeah, I'm inclined to go with ems too. The one thing I will say about Timothy's method, and you know, I know this is sounding a bit abstract if you haven't seen the video and the website, but I will cover that in just a second. The one thing about the wizardry method is, like, I'm a template developer, right? So I develop templates in the Webflow marketplace, and there are custom code snippets that you need to add in case you don't want your fonts to be responsive on larger screens. And the unfortunate thing with that, not really unfortunate, but as a template developer, you can't use custom code in the templates. So I'm a little bit locked in, I feel, with pixels, unless I wanted to use, I could use the Timothy method, but I'd be a little bit concerned about larger screens unless I used larger breakpoints. So that I might consider that option of using larger breakpoints and then changing the body font size across those different breakpoints for larger screens, instead of using the max width code that Timothy provides. So Adrian wrote, question, rems aren't just a multiplier of pixels. They are, yeah. So if you have one rem, like, rem uses the browser's base font size. So if the browser's base font size is 16 pixels, which seems to be the default, or like the more popular font size for browsers, the base font size, then one rem would be 16 pixels. And then if you use ems on a unit inside of the parent element, then, you know, the multiplier would be 16. So 2 ems would be 32 pixels. Yeah. Right. So it is, you know, hopefully we don't have too many new viewers, because what I'm about to cover is, like, gets into the weeds of web design and development, which is what we're all here for, right? We're here to expand our knowledge, and, you know, especially if we're developing for clients, we want to give them the best project possible and use the best practices we can. So along with going over the wizardry method today, I'm going to, one thing that I found today that I'm super excited to share with everyone, and this is going to help us in our live streams, because it's going to help us, I'm looking for the right adjectives to describe this. It's going to help us level up our Webflow game, because we're just going to be building layouts, right? So in the past few live streams, I've built entire websites, but moving forward with the next few live streams, we're just going to be building layouts, like, and then we're just going to go and pick our own images. So we'll have fun with design as well. We'll have fun with colors, with images. But I found this Figma file, and I'm part of Envato Elements. It's a great place to find design assets. if you're not, if you need design assets, I know there's things like Adobe has like their own thing as well for design assets, but I really like Envato Elements, and I have a link in the description area below. I'm an affiliate with Envato Elements. So if you need design elements, definitely feel free to click on the link below. And if you want to subscribe to Envato, you can. But they have so many good templates, like Figma templates. I could create live streams for years just based on the amount of content provided by Envato Elements. Like the Figma files they provide are just so great. Like I could click here to see more, and they just have tons of things, icons, digital assets, images, and it's all good quality. Like the stuff I find here is like really impressive. To me, sometimes it feels like going through a really dope Dribble page full of great content that I can use for my projects. And all of it, once you subscribe, you can download as many assets as you want. And I just really, really like it. And the icons and everything is just really great. So that's my little plug there. I am an affiliate with Envato Elements. I really like what they provide. And yeah, it's just great stuff. So I found this Figma kind of wireframe UI kit, and I thought it was just perfect for these live streams, right? Like I could go through each live stream and let's say, hey, today let's build out this hero section. It's very simple. We can just probably add a background image, but it could help us develop in Webflow. Like the simpler we can keep it and the more repetitive we can keep our, the more repetitive we can be with how we approach Webflow, the easier these concepts will stick in our mind, and the faster we'll be able to build in Webflow and take on projects and just, build out really nice things for clients and for our own personal projects and things like that. So I haven't decided what we're going to build today. Maybe we'll build this. Looks like there's a slider here. But yeah, even this looks cool. I like this. So maybe we'll build this hero section today. All right, so the first thing we're going to cover is the Wizardry method. So they do have, if you go to documentation, and I already had it opened here, but there's this nice Notion doc that just covers it in full detail. So essentially what I'm going to do here in this live stream, he does have a clonable project that you can just download here, and he has a video that you can watch. But I'm just going to start from the beginning and kind of cover what he covered in his video and just follow these instructions because they're very straightforward and just easy to follow. So implementing Wizardry, let's just go through it. On desktop, we're going to set the body all pages font size to 1 VW. How about this? I got an idea. Let's follow these instructions along with building this hero section. That could be cool. And then we also want not only a hero section, but we might want a container section. So yeah, we'll build out a hero section along with, or actually no, we can add a container for this. This will be in a container. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll add a container for this content here. The clamp function doesn't work in Webflow. It is a little shame for responsive typography and padding. Yeah, the clamp. So Wizardry does have a workaround on this. So I'm not too familiar with the clamp function. I think it's a CSS property, if I'm not mistaken. CSS clamp property, which probably sets a min width to the, it sets an upper and lower bound. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so let me go back to my thing here. Yeah, so that's a great point, Ren. Or Renee, I think. Let me know if I pronounced that correctly. Wizardry does have a way to clamp or set a min width to the typography. So rem is easier than M, just like pixel. The difference is accessibility, so you can scale up in your browser. Nice. Thanks for that point. So if that's the case, then I think the Wizardry method might suffice, and it could be fairly similar to the rem method. So I know I've done a lot of talking. Let's just jump in. But everyone feel free to post your ideas and your experiences with different typography, because we are learning all of this together, and there's so many nuances to typography that I think the more we can learn about it, the better. All right, so I'm just gonna go through these steps. I know I mentioned that before, but let's just go for it. All right, so set the body all pages font size to 1VW. So I have a blank project here. So I'll just go to the body all pages and we'll set the font size to 1VW. Okay, so that's done. Next step, set all other font sizes using M and set the line height to unitless. So let's just go ahead and add headings H1 through H6. And sorry, just closed my browser there. Let me get back to Chrome. All right, cool. So yeah, I'll just add a heading and we'll just add H1 through H6 and H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Obviously, if I was building a real site, I'd want to base these sizes off like a style guide, like a design style guide. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to quickly give them, various sizing. So H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. All right, so we have our headings, and let me add a paragraph element as well. So you have the paragraph element. Okay, so let's go in and set all other font sizes using M and set line heights to unitless. All right, so we'll stick with the default sizes that Webflow has here, and then we'll use the Wizardry Calculator to calculate the sizes in M's. All right, so let's go to the calculator. And he has a calculator here. So again, he mentions all of this in his video. So we can just go like this. So H1, our max width. Yeah, let's see. Our max width is going to be, we'll say 1440 for the max width. And then for the H1 is going to be, or you know what? I like using 1280 for my max width. That's just a personal preference. So either or is fine. So I'll say 1280 H1, and the size here is 38 pixels, and the line height is 44. And he says to set the line heights to unitless. So 38, 44. So we're going to set it to unitless, and we'll say just one for now. So we'll go to the calculator, and it was 38 pixels, so 2.97 M's. So I'll go back into my site and I'll set this to 2.97 M's, and there we go. So it does look a little bit larger, but all right. So artboard width. Okay, and then the line height is going to be, what was it? 44. All right. Let me put this here. So line height, font size is 38. Line height is 44. So 1.16. All right. So Reen, is easier just to set the base font size to 62.5% for rem. Then you can set the base font size to 1.6 rem. And you can set the base font size, body 62.5%, and then paragraph to 1.6 rem. All right, Renee, I'm not quite there yet as far as typography. I'm going to look up that method for sure, just to see what the value is for that. But that does sound very interesting. So the line height, 1.16, and here, okay, so right here, and we'll say 2.97 M's for this. Okay, so that's our heading. So heading 2, 32, and 36. So let's add our H2. And it's 32 and 36. 2.5 ems, and the line height we'll say 32. Okay, so 32 and 36. Okay, and unit list 1.13. So we'll set it to unit list, which is this dash here, and we'll just paste that in there. All right, so, oh yeah, and I have to make sure I'm styling the global class. Oh, shoot, okay. So I'm gonna try to move a bit quicker. I know I'm going a little slow here. Okay, 1.16, unit lists. All right, cool. So heading 2, we want to apply to the global class. So applying it to the global class just makes it easier every time we add a heading to the site. Okay, 38 to 44, H2, 2.5 ems. And 1.13. All right, unit list, okay. All right, so I'll try to move a bit quicker here. So H3, let's go ahead and add our H3. So this is something that you could probably prep beforehand here for your project. H3, 24 and 30. So 24, 1.88 ems. All headings here, ems. And then we'll add a new one. Font size 24, 1.5. Okay, and then, oh, made a mistake there. So this is 2.5 ems. Okay, H3, H4, so 1824. $1.41 ems. The one thing I'm curious about is, well, once we add our container, our font sizes will change a bit. So I definitely want to test that in a second. H4, 1824, which is 1.41 ems. And style the global tag. And we are going to go down here. How's everyone doing, by the way? I know I'm taking my sweet time here. You know what I'm doing? I forgot to put the proper line height here. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that for now. H4, 24. Okay. There we go. There's a lot to typography. Okay, 1.33. Okay. And H5. Okay, H5. 1420, so 14 pixels. 1.09 ems. All headings. And the line height is 1420. So I'm just using the default Webflow line heights and pixels here. Line height unit lists, and boom. Okay, last heading. Okay, we're getting there. All right, click the plus. Label this H6. All right, and 12 and 18. So 12 pixels. Copy this. And the global tag. Paste that in there, and line height is 18. Okay. All right, so the headings are done and we just have the paragraph left. So the paragraph is 1 VW. Okay, so yeah, if I change the paragraph here, it's using VW, and we'll change the line height to unitless. So we'll leave the paragraph like it is, or let's change the line height to 1.6. And yeah, we can leave the paragraph at VW here. All right, so we've done that. Let's go ahead and add the section, and yeah, so I'll go ahead to Navigator, we'll add a section, and yeah, let me just place the section at the top, and I'll place all this inside of the section. Actually, it's going to go inside of a container. So I'm going to hit Command K, add a div block. We're going to call this the container. And for the container, we're going to set a max width of 1280, which is what we set for the artboard here. The artboard width was 1280. And I'll set the spacing to auto, so it's centered. And I'll place the container up here, and we want to place these in here. All right, so I don't think it changes the font size there, but yeah, it still looks the same. All right, cool. So we have our container, and this is where Timothy talked about adding M's for the padding. So if we go to the style guide here. Oh yeah, so let's continue here. So set all other font sizes using M and set line heights to unitless. So step 2 is done. So add in a section with no padding. So step 3 is done. Add a container inside the section. Set padding using M's. So set padding using M's. So let's look here at the container. So we added the container, and for the padding, let's do like 1M. And 1M on each side, so just to see how much padding I want. So this I guess would just have to be like how big you want the container to be, you know, and you can make the screens larger. So let's say I was on a 2560 screen, I could just gauge, you know, how much padding I want to add on the left and the right here. Right, so this would actually be 2 VW because it's 2 M's. Because it's inheriting the wait, is that true? I'm curious about that actually. Does 2 EMs equal 2 VW? Because we just applied the VW to the font size, not the width. Would you use M or Rem exclusively for typography, or also for width, height dimensions, and margin and padding of any element? That's a great question, Manuel. So Timothy actually wrote here what units to use for each CSS property, and that's why I like this method so much, because it's very organized. He wrote down like what units to use for different elements on the site. So you could just go to the site here. It's the wizardrytechnique.webflow.io. He has a video, he has everything that goes over it. So in this live stream, I'm just covering how basically what he covered in his video, but we're just doing it step by step. All right, so yeah, so let me just go back here and read this. Set the body all pages font size to 1 VW. Yeah, so I'm guessing the padding is using yeah, maybe it is using the VW. Possibly. Curious about that. I tried to use M also for those, but I got totally lost along the way and ended up using pixels again. For sure. Yeah, this is the same thing. So Adrian, just take note of this. Like this is not something that you're just individually experiencing. Like all of us experience these pain points. So Manuel, Adrian wrote back up top like he feels like he's doing something wrong because he doesn't quite understand which to use, rems, ems, pixels, VW. And I just shared with him like we all share this same dilemma, if you will, of like trying to understand or wrap our heads around the units to use for typography and for sizing and different things like that. So that's why I'm taking the time. I know it's slow going at the moment as far as like what I'm doing, but I'm just taking the time so we can all learn together and learn this wizardry method together, as well as bring up any topics that might be confusing along the way. So for me, I just ran into something that's confusing. And the first step, I think, is admitting like when you're confused. I think it's totally okay to say, I don't quite understand this. You know, there's M's, there's rems, there's VWs, there's percentages. And for me to sit up here and tell you that I totally have a 100% grasp on all of it, I wouldn't be totally honest, even though I want to give the impression that I do, like, because, I work with Webflow so much. This is an area where I definitely want to learn more. I do feel like I got a good grasp on interactions, on animations, on working with Lottie and After Effects. That part I feel good with, as well as like building layouts in Webflow, like Flexbox and now I'm starting to use Grid. But as far as typography, this is an area where I definitely want to improve. And it's such an important part to web design, like 90% of web design is typography, right? Why do people go to a website? It's to read the content. And I think this is why Webflow is focusing so much on accessibility as well, because you want people to be able to digest the content on the website and not be mystified or have a hard time going through the content on the site. So this is definitely a worthwhile exercise. I know it's probably not the most exciting thing right now, especially watching me just type in units into the designer, but we will, as we go through it, it will get easier, and we will build out this header today just to make it a bit more exciting, and we'll add some images. But for now, let's just continue with the wizardry method, and yeah, just finish out the steps, outline going through the steps here. All right, so give the container a max width. We did that. So the container has a max width of 1280, which is what we used for the artboard width here. Add a CSS media query to change the body font size to pixels at the container's max width. All right, so yeah, let's just take a look at what's happening here, and let's see if our fonts are responsive, or like if they get larger or smaller. So let me see if that, let me resize this. So yeah, you can see our font sizes are getting larger and smaller. So our fonts are scaling, which is, yeah, this is exactly what we wanted there. The line heights are a bit off because as I was entering the values, I wasn't really focused on line height, but we can adjust that as we build the hero section. Yeah, so there we go. The container, let's look at this. The container has a max width of 1280. And yeah, and let's add a larger breakpoint at 920 and just see how this looks. So at 920, there's our site. So let me see here. Yeah, so we're going all the way. Here we're at 1624. So we can add, let's say if we made this the site 3000. So we can add a piece of code, and this is the next step. So add a CSS media query to change the body font size to pixels at the container's max width. So we can see if the width of the screen that was being looked at was 3000, the font size would get really large, even though our container still has a max width of 1280. And let me actually go to the desktop view and do it from here. So if we had a width of 3000, and let me get even more extreme, 5000, we can see our font still scales up, but our max width is still 1280. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and add that piece of code, which is the max width calculator. So we want to grab this code and copy it. So first we'll set the container max width, we'll set it to 1280, and we'll copy it here. So this is the max width for the desktop version. On 920 and up, you can set a different max width. So I could set it to like 1440, something like that, and have a different max width there. But yeah, let me work on desktop. So we'll add an embed element. So let me add an embed, and so let's see, where's the embed element? Oh man, okay. Yeah, embed is here. Here it is. Okay, so I'll just paste that in there, that code. So so when the size of the screen gets larger than 1280 pixels, then the font size will be converted to pixels instead of VW. So this could be a little caveat. So using this method, at one point our body font size is going to be set to pixels rather than rems. So I don't know if this is where rems has the advantage, because with rems we're initially setting the body font size to rems rather than, we never use pixels when using rems. So this wizardry method does use pixels at some point, and that's if we don't want the font size to scale up past a specific max width. So here I'll click save and close. So notice what happened here, and yes, we have this HTML embed. I'll just hide it. So let's see. So let me go to this larger breakpoint here. So here we're at 920, and let me try to grab it the correct way. Let's preview. And let me grab it from here. Oh, okay. All right, so see the font scaling, and it scales up. Then we get to, and let me do it here. All right, so if we're looking at this ruler, I don't know if you can see it at the bottom. So we're scaling up, and once we get to the max width of 1280, which is right here, we can see that the font stops scaling. All right, except the paragraph. The paragraph is still scaling. And why is the paragraph still scaling? I think it's because it's still set in VW. So the paragraph is scaling, so we have to add some custom code for the paragraph as well. So there we go. And the paragraph scales. So that piece of custom code that we added stopped the font from scaling. All right, so let's continue. We've done that. Add a CSS media query to change the body font size to pixels at the container's max width. So step 6 is done. And then size all elements using M's, which we did. Oh, so 1 M does equal 1 VW. So that answered my question about the padding. So this M equals, it's the same as saying 2 VW, you know. So here on 1920 and up, if I wanted the container to be smaller, I could just change the M unit here for a 1920 pixel screen. So now if we set it to 3000 here, so on a larger screen we see that the fonts won't scale on a much larger screen. And I think you can add different media queries along the way to fit the design. So again, I think a lot of it has to do with like resizing the browser and just making sure that your fonts are scaling appropriately depending on the screen size. But this is a really cool method because it does allow us to scale our fonts. And one thing he mentions that once we get to tablet, for example, rather than using VW for the body, we can use pixels. So here on the body all pages, right now it's 1 VW. So rather than VW, I could use pixels. So I could say 16 pixels. And then, you know, if I make my pixels larger, the fonts would get larger on tablet. And let's say I go to mobile and I wanted smaller font sizes, I could do something like this with just pixels on the body. For the paragraph, I think you didn't set the value to global. Let me take a look. You're right. Thank you. Yep. And we also didn't set ems for the paragraph, so let's do that. Did he set ems here for the paragraph? Yeah, he set it to 1em. I'll just do that here, 1em, and line height we'll do 1.6, and unitless. Okay, so that's our paragraph. All right. So hopefully that made sense. I know I covered a lot. I highly recommend checking out the Wizardry technique, watching his video. So let's go on to what he says here. So he says on tablet and below, set the body all pages font size to pixels, and all elements inside will change to pixels. Okay, so that's done. We just went over that. Change left and right container padding and larger headings to VW optional. Change left and right container padding and larger headings to VW optional. All right, so we can do that. So I'm not sure. Oh, because I see, because we set the body to pixels, now the padding is in pixels, right? Because the ems are relative to the body font size. So if we set it to VW, this will give us a bit more control over the padding on different devices. So I do have to say I like this method. It does feel very responsive. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, and he does go over one last thing. He goes over minimum paragraph font size on desktop, which we can cover now. So he has this here, min width calculator. So the min width, when we get smaller than yeah, let's see. So on tablet, oh shoot, or let me see here. Yeah, so as we start scaling down, we can see the paragraph font gets too small. So I want to say if we get to less than 1280, stop scaling the paragraph, because it's not viewable once we get to 1280. So the screen width, or we can leave it at 1200. That's appropriate there. Font size, we'll say 1em, and the class name is just going to be the paragraph element. So we'll just write P. So when we get less than 1200 pixels, don't resize the font. Okay, so I'll go back into my embed element in here. Let me make it visible, and we'll just add that piece of code in there. So we're saying once we get to a min width of 1200, or max width of 1200, set the font size to 12 pixels. So save and close. So Renee, I think this is similar to clamping, what we're doing here with this piece of code. We're just setting, what is it? Not barriers, but we're setting outlines or boundaries to the scaling of the font, which I think might be similar to clamp. Okay, so we added that piece of code, and now if we resize and we get lower than 1200 pixels, notice that the paragraph now starts wrapping and the paragraph text does not get smaller. It's a little bit hard to see because the scaling is very minute here, but here we can see the font size is scaling, and then we get here and then it starts wrapping because it's no longer scaling, right? If I took out this piece of code right here that we just added, if I took that out and we resized, notice that the text doesn't wrap, it just scales down. All right, and let me just paste that piece of code back in there and save. Okay, cool. So I go in here, the headings don't scale on the larger breakpoints. Once we get past 1280, the text does not scale, but 1280 and below, we have scaling text. Then we get to tablet, and we can just change the size of the text by changing the body all pages font size. And along with that, you can control the specific font sizes individually. Like you can just go in and add a class to this paragraph and change the font size. or add it to the parent element, and change the font size as well. So this is just kind of like I would say a starter template to starting with fonts. And yeah, so hopefully that all made sense. Everyone, I definitely recommend watching the video. After watching what I just did and then watching the video, things will start clicking probably a bit better. But I just basically went over a lot what Timothy went over in this video. All right, so Arpad wrote, what's your advice for scaling up a website to like a really big monitor, even TV? I'm going to have a data viz project and they're going to show it on a very big screen. Yeah, I would use this method, honestly, the VW method. So I would add a 1920 breakpoint, which is the largest breakpoint Webflow allows. And then I would probably remove this here. I would remove this piece of code. So either remove it or set the max width to something really large. So let's say we had a max width on 1920. The max width for the container was 1920. Yeah, so it would fill the screen essentially, but on really large screens we might want a container that large. So let's just try it. So let's say the container max width is 1920. We'll grab this piece of code in here and just paste it in there. So 1920, save and close. And yeah, so now if we have a screen that's like a TV, I don't know how large or what the pixel width of a TV is, but if we say 3000, we could do that. And then we could also change the font size on the larger breakpoints as well. All right, so let me change the max width here to 1920. I feel like the font sizes could have gotten bigger there. All right. So I'm definitely getting into it here. Font size 19. Oh. Yeah, let's see. Oh no, I'm setting a max width here. Let me try removing this code for a sec. So as you can see, there's a lot being covered here in this first video around fonts. So I removed that piece of code, and what this allows for is like we don't set any boundaries. Like if we have a screen that's, I don't know, 5,000 pixels wide, and we remove the M's here. Let me see, why isn't our font scaling? All right. So yeah, I'm confusing myself a little bit, so this might be a good point for me to stop, and then we'll just get into a build. But Arpad, just start working with VW and M's and just see how that goes for you, and then just test on TV and test with setting different max widths for your container. Like for 1920, a 1920 breakpoint, you could set a max width of, yeah, I haven't worked too much with really large breakpoints like that, so maybe you would set it to 1920. Or like if you had a really large screen, like a TV, then you'd probably do something a little different. It also depends what the browser width for the TV is, because I don't know if, like, there's so much that goes into that. I think it just requires testing. Like, go to Chrome on the TV and then just look at other sites and see, like, what is the viewport width of the TV? Like, is it using all the entire pixel density or what's the resolution of the TV actually? That's probably the biggest question. Yeah, I would check out the resolution of the TV, because like if you're using pixel value on a TV, that's like thousands of pixels, I think. So I don't know. There's a lot there. Like I'm going down the rabbit hole of pixels and everything. But this is good. I'm definitely open to continue these conversations, because like there's just so much to it. So let me read a few of these chats. By the way, I'd like to warmly thank you for the BioPlay series. I learned so much thanks to you. Thank you, Eunice. Appreciate it. I'm going to be creating more like side videos like that, so definitely stay tuned. Um, yeah, that was a fun series actually. We used a lot of custom code. I don't know how practical that design was. Maybe it was, but I like just messing around with different effects and seeing if those can be achieved. And it was. We did it with Webflow. We linked sliders and stuff, which was super cool. All right. So Pablo wrote before, are you familiar with CSS Clamp? Can you do the same thing that Wizardry does with just adding custom CSS? Um, so yeah, this is something Reen wrote. I'm just gonna say Reen about CSS Clamp. Yeah, I haven't worked with CSS Clamp too much. Uh, oh, you just bought me 3 coffees. Thank you, Eunice. Uh, wow, that is awesome. Yeah, if you have any questions, like you definitely have high priority. So like, if there's anything you want me to look over, like you seem really proficient in Webflow already, but let me know. I'll be happy to help with anything. Uh, like if you want me to look at projects or something. But yeah, super grateful for 3 coffees. That is awesome. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I was answering Pablo's question. Yeah. So CSS clamp to me just seems like a way to set min width and max width boundaries, which seems like this custom code solution covers it. And you probably can add custom code CSS clamp to within the embed here. That's probably a Webflow wishlist item too. So Webflow wishlist CSS clamp. I bet you it is. No, I don't see it here. Anyways, okay. But yeah, that's probably can be done via custom code as well. I meant if you use clamp, you don't need to add the jQuery code. Okay, cool. Pablo wrote, do you recommend using the bigger breakpoint option even if you have a big external monitor? In my opinion, adding a bigger breakpoint makes things more complicated. Yeah, that depends. I think I would just test with that, Pablo. If you feel that your max width on desktop is sufficient for even bigger screens, then maybe that's fine. Like me, I tend to just use the desktop layout. But I'm learning, I'm learning. Maybe bigger breakpoints is something that I start using more often. And I'll definitely, be testing more on larger screens. Because yeah, if a user is, viewing a site on a 2560 screen and they're using the full pixel density, and let me see what my max width here is, and I have a 1280 max width, that still doesn't look bad, right? We have all the space here on the left and the right for the container, and if you're using like full width images, the design will still look good on the site. Like for example, if we go to apple.com and let's just take a look here. Apple, so my resolution is 1280. What's my resolution on my screen right now? Let me check. I am using a 1920 by 1080. So let me go into here and let's just make this smaller. So yeah, I don't know what the resolution is here, but I just like zoomed out on my browser. But we can see even for Apple, like if you're using like larger screens, like they have all this white space on the left and the right. I don't know if that's actually true though. Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna dive a bit deeper into that and maybe change the resolution of my screen. All right, let me do that now actually. So apple.com. Let me change the resolution. This is a very advanced live stream today, everyone. So if you're new, we don't always go over all of these topics here. So let's say more space. Oops, let me go to this screen. More space. And yeah, so it's probably cut off here on my live stream, but I changed my resolution for my screen to 15, what is it here? 50, I can't even read it. To 3840 by 2160. And on Apple, they have white space on the left and the right. So they are using like a max width on their sections even, or maybe they're just containers, but the images don't span the full 100% width. So that's just one thing to know. I would look at other sites and just compare and just see what other big websites are doing. Like Apple is a good gauge for that, right? Because like how many people go to apple.com? Probably millions. So yeah, that's my 2 cents with that. And we can continue talking about this because it's not a one and done type of conversation. There's many nuances that go into responsiveness and larger screens and font sizes and all that good stuff. All right. So yeah, no, no worries, Arpad. This is something we all struggle with too. Like, you don't need to yeah, it's all good. We want to keep learning and continue to get better with responsive design. All right, cool. So the live stream is, well, that's weird. Something in my throat. The live stream is almost done, but let's just quickly see if we can start building in Webflow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this homepage, and we're just going to call it Style Guide. So we have a reference for our fonts here, and then we can just tweak it if we need to. And then I'm going to delete this here because we're not going to use that for now. And let's see if we can quickly build this hero section. So there's no nav bar. We won't go with the nav bar, but let's just see. Oh, and this is the other thing I wanted to mention. So on the Wizardry site here, he does have a clonable project. So everything I just covered, if you want to just clone the project at Wizardry, you can just grab this clonable project and use it as a style guide for your typography. And that way you can skip everything I just covered, and you don't have to manually do it yourself, and just use the values that he added here. And you can tweak them and change them to fit your specific style guide. All right, so we won't have time to build this, but we'll just start. So I'm going to do a speed build. So section, I'm going to set the min height to 100. Well, let's give it a class name. Call it section, min height 100 VH. And let's go in here and let's see. So 100 VH, we have this left section. So let me add the container. So we'll add a div block. We'll add container. I'm actually going to rename this to lowercase. I'm going to use lowercases for my class names. So we have the container. Then we help grow the creative industry. So we have kind of a left side and a right side. So let's go ahead in the container, and I'm going to add a div block, and I'm going to call this left side, and we'll just duplicate that, just copy it, and I'm going to duplicate this class, call it right side. And then for this container, I'm going to say is hero, and let's set it to flex horizontal. For the left side, let's just say grow if possible, and for the right side as well, we'll say grow if possible. And let me go to the desktop version. I was on the larger breakpoint, that's why everything looks small. Oh man, so things definitely do get complicated once you start adding more breakpoints. See, I wasn't used to going to that larger one, and I was like designing in the larger one. Yeah, so for sure. Okay, cool. So left side, let's do that, and right side, that. Okay, so we help grow the creative industry. This is going to be an H1. So, oops. Yeah, okay. So we'll just have time to add this heading. So H1, and we help grow the creative industry. We help, is it capital case? Nope. We help grow the creative industry. All right, so one thing, I'm going to go to the style guide here, and I want to change the H1 to, let's say, a different font. Let's say Montserrat. And also the H2, I want to change it to Montserrat. All right, cool. And we'll style the style guide as we continue. So we have that font. That looks good. And for the section, I'm going to say section. That was my 1 o'clock bell. Actually, it was for something else. The section, I'm going to say align horizontal, center, center, and yeah, the section, bin height of 100 VH. All right, cool. We help grow the creative industry. So yeah, this, let's see, this left side. Let's see, left side. Rather than grow if possible, I'll do something like this for now. We might use percentages for this. And we have this paragraph text. This is more like a text block. Or no, we'll just do a paragraph. All right, so left side, let's add a paragraph. And we'll say, we'll just copy this text from here in Figma, paste in there, and we have a button. All right, cool. And that looks good. So for the left side, let's just say, let's use a percentage. Let's say 50%. Oh no, 60%. Something like that. All right. And it's probably going to be less. So this hero section has it looks like it's using the entire width of the browser. So we'll see. No, actually, I want to keep things in a container there. So yeah, this will be a fun build. We'll see how we want to approach this. But that's it for this live stream. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your input. We did cover a lot of advanced topics. We'll continue on this path, tomorrow, even the next day. If you're new to Webflow, feel free to ask, just simple questions about Webflow. I'm happy to cover that. Feels like we went around the globe on this one, using the wizardry method, using M's, VWs, talking about rems, talking about clamp, setting min and max widths on containers, and all that good stuff. So I definitely feel like I leveled up my game just in this one live stream. So I want to thank everyone who joined and discussed this topic with me. And I want to continue building on this knowledge and implementing some of these new techniques in my website builds. All right, so I'll finish reading off here. Website is in French, but just design and animations are universal. True. That is true. Yeah, sorry for that question. It started you on offsite. Oh, yeah, no worries. Cool. Awesome. So I'm a bit winded, not dizzy. I don't know what the word is for it, but we covered so many different topics today, but it was really fun. So again, I can't thank Timothy enough because this is his build. You can tell he's a really good designer too, because the website is just really well designed, and the fact that we can use these different options here and we can drag and drop these panels just shows his skill as a web developer and designer. So kudos to Timothy Ricks. Awesome job, really love it. And yeah, maybe we'll cover it more tomorrow, and as we build some of these layouts, it'll help us understand this wizardry method even more, and we can build a layout, and then we can see how it looks on different devices, and that'll give us more context for how we want to design our fonts across the different breakpoints. And if we want to add larger breakpoints, and that'll give us more practice with using the canvas settings here, using the larger breakpoint settings in Webflow. And then I think it's going to come full circle, and we're going to have a really great aha moment as we build some of these different designs, along with using the wizardry style guide that we created here, and using the M's on padding and the max width features in the custom code. All right, I think that's it for me. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Stay tuned to the, let me find it here. I'm very happy with how this build turned out. It's not done. The design isn't done yet, but let me find it here if I can find it very quickly. Yeah, so right here. So this design here, I'm going to be creating an entire video just on this, but it's a clip path slider, right? So this was all done in Webflow. There is some custom code. And yeah, it's just a really cool slider, and the possibilities with what I'm going to show in the video I create, I feel are endless. Like if you have a specific design, like you can style your clip path or style the slider to match the design of your site. It doesn't have to be a circle. Like you can have a polygon, like come in and like create this really intricate animation, and then have the slider, like have the clip path close in on the slider, and then have it reveal out, and then showcase another slider. Like it's just a lot of fun. Like I'm gonna geek out over the different things that you can do with this the code and the build, how I showcase how to build this. And this is actually super simple. Like having the text go up and down, that is super simple. It's just a quick interaction in Webflow. The more complicated part is just animating the clip path and having the slide be timed with the clip path. But yeah, it's a very fun build. I'm going to pick out different images for this too and just design it a bit better. But that's going to be a super fun video once it's available. And there'll be a free clonable project for this as well. So you can go into the project and see what code I used and how I built it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Eunice, thank you for the coffees. I really, really, really appreciate it. The live streams are getting even more fun. Didn't expect to dive so deep into typography, but I'm very happy we did. Like, it gives me even more things to talk about in my live streams. And along with building out these wireframes, we're just going to be like super proficient in Webflow and super proficient in web design and development. So super excited, just happy with how these live streams are going. And thanks everyone for joining. My voice just cracked a little bit. That's okay. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see everyone tomorrow. Spread the word if you know anyone who's new to Webflow and wants to learn about Webflow, needs help with Webflow. Spread the word about these live streams. Definitely happy with how it's turning out and how everyone's joining. I think it's going to keep growing, and it's going to be very fun to communicate and discuss with everyone, interact with everyone in the live stream and in the chat. And I'm kind of rambling a bit, but yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you.